Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Nir Goldfarb, and I am the product manager of Automation Studio. And I'm very excited to start our first season about Callout Design live webinars. This is a 4-chapter season which will be led by our top experts, broadcast live, and later recorded to Nice Dojo as a reference. And today our session will be led by our top lead UX expert, Simone Maimon, who is with me. And Simone will take you through the Callout design tools. And to know about these sessions. So make sure you are registered and getting the alert from the community. This will allow you also, on your day-to-day job to connect with thousands of RPA experts, ask questions, get answers, but also access unique content such as the content we are starting to deliver today. And of course, the best place to share ideas and best practices. A minute before we start. So for our session today, I will take questions through the chat. So please write them. And if we'll have time by the end of the presentation, we'll answer on demand. And if not, I promise to get an answer if needed offline. And I think that this is it. With no further ado, Simone, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Nir. Thank you, Nir. I want to start with a simple question. We need to talk about callout, but first of all, what is a callout? A callout is a key part of an attended automation. A callout is a pop-up window presented to the agent in order to display information, collect information, allow the agent to trigger an action, and to launch a workflow inside Automation Studio. Callouts can be launched by workflows, by event handlers, or by other callouts. In Automation Studio, the user can highly customize the look of a callout by building Visual Composer. A callout appears as a pop-up window of the operation system. It means that it's not related to the web browser and could be triggered in any time, also if Automation Studio is not working and is closed. It's important. Crucial important information why we want to expand our callout capabilities. But we will take this a little bit later. So welcome to our webinar. I'm Simone, UX specialist of NICE RPA products, and I will introduce you to the callout world in Automation Studio. Today we will cover Callout Overview, Callout Functionalities, how you can boost the callout capabilities by JavaScript, callout sharing and reusability, and callout tips and tricks. We will not talk about callout design because it will be part of the next webinar. But before we start, let me describe a focal point in Automation Studio philosophy. Automation Studio is a continuous delivery software. What does it mean? It means they're releasing additional features without depending on version upgrades. Cycle, around 1 month, and based on your feedback and requirements. So please, for any request, don't hesitate to share your ideas in the community center. Let's start now with a small overview of the Automation Studio interface and terminology. So, as I say, continuous delivery means short cycle of release. So please always look at this banner on the top to be updated regarding Automation Studio new capabilities. Now let's take a look to the Automation Studio callout interface. The toolbar to save, open, and export import projects. The asset panel, or we call it sometimes asset tree. This is the heart of Automation Studio, contain assets and callouts, workflow, UDF, function, events, and properties. We have the control list that contain all the available components for the callout. The action builder to build your automation. We have the design preview with the Visual Composer to build your own callout. The style and setting panel to change the setting of the control inside the callout and to manage the style. And here we have another tab that is the HTML viewer to inspect the source code. Let's now dive deep inside Automation Studio. I will just close the presentation and we will move to Automation Studio. Okay, just another test with the audio. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So let's start. I think that, okay, I think this is Automation Studio. I think that you probably already familiar with the interface, but now start just talk about be focused in the callout. So my first question, how I can create my callout? As all the assets in Automation Studio, I have several ways to create a new asset, but the first and most faster way is going here to our asset panel, or we said asset tree, identify the specific branch that we want to work with, in this case, the callout, and we can just on over appear this plus button. I can just click this plus button and create my first callout. We have also another way to create a callout, just moving here on the plus button for generic next to the search, and this generic plus button, and I see here the list of all the assets that I can create, and I can create a new callout. As you see here, it's a little bit different because we have two different modes, the grid callout and the freeform callout. Let's create, 1 second, the freeform callout, and later we will talk about the difference between the two types, grid and freeform. The third way to create a callout is just going here next to the last tab, click and add a new tab. For this case, once again, callout, and I can choose for grid callout, that's just to specify is the default one, and the freeform callout. Once creating my callout, I can come back to asset tree and I can see the callout, the new asset that I created. As I said, the asset panel is a fundamental part of all Automation Studio. From here, first of all, I see my assets, callout 1 and callout 2 that I've just created. I see different icons that indicate me if it's a grid callout or freeform callout. And from here, I can, for example, right click or 3-dot click, and I can rename my callout. I can open it if it's closed. I can for sure delete it. And if I am expanding the specific callout, I can identify all the function, properties, and event related to the specific callout. All these elements, for sure, you can drag and drop inside your builder to build your own automation. Another important thing that we will use also later is the show usage that will show you exactly where the callout, in this case, the specific callout, or in any case, all the assets are in use, and you can identify, modify, and always work with them. Now I want to just to tell you a tip regarding Automation Studio. once we are working with big project and especially with big callout solution, probably we want to reduce the size of our asset panel just to be in focus to our scope. So I can just suggest you to go here to this hamburger menu, click the setting button, and we have the Automation Studio setting regarding the asset panel. In this case, I can, for example, remove the data collection, the screen element from my branch, from my asset panel, just to reduce the size of my asset panel and work better, to gain in real estate. Now, we come back from what we said before. We have the grid callout and the freeform callout. What are the differences? The freeform callout are recommended for demonstration and proof of concept purpose. I can simply drag each control to the desired position of the callout. What does it mean? I'm here in my control list. I am identified the control that I want to use, that I can use, for example, one button. I'm just drag and drop exactly in the position that I want. For this reason called freeform. In contrary, in the grid callout that are recommended for professional designer and for production ready callouts, as I said before, is the default one for us. The location of the controller on the callout is specific using standard HTML and CSS display properties. What does it mean? That I'm now dropping my first button everywhere in the canvas, and the button will appear on top as a regular rule in HTML. If I'm dropping the second one, I will see the second button inline. If now I want to see them, for example, in two different lines, I need to click on it and through the setting panel, say, for example, that I want the display mode instead to be the default inline block. I can move it to block and display the button in two different lines. With the grid callout, we always recommend to use the first three element control that we have in the list. This is one column, two column, and table, to create your own grid, to build your design. The one column, two column grid are just simple empty div, if we're talking in a HTML language, empty div that I can use them to create my grid. So in this case, I can just drop my button inside the two div that I created, and they directly appear in two different lines. Now let me cancel what I created. Okay, and let's continue to talk about a callout. If I now click into the main frame, I will see on the right something that we just look very fast to the style panel. The style panel contains all the design, the setting of the design of the specific callout, and the settings and the generic setting of the callout. If you see, I just click the frame, we will see here that we can decide the size of my callout. If we want that the callout appear with the close button, minimize button, the position that I want that my callout will appear to the agent, I can change the title, and I can also play with my skins, for example, that are built inside the callout window when it will appear to the agent. And for sure, other small things like background color, etc. What happens now if I'm dropping here a button? If we see, the style panel will change accordingly, because now we are not setting the main frame, we are setting just the specific button. From here, if you see, you can, if you take a look, we can change the button name, that is the default one, is button one, and the content, that in this case is button, we can just change it in start. And we can just and we can also change all the design of this button. For example, I'm going faster on this. For example, I can go to the decoration, change the background color in a nice blue, and in a typography part, I can put white text. I have now my callout with my control. As we said, for a callout, a grid mode callout, we recommend also always to use the 1 column, 2 column, and table to build your own grid. So just move like this. Let me drop one column component, and I will drop inside my button. It's important to say that, as you see here, there is a sort of dot line. In design mode, what we are seeing here, we see the edge of the element with this small dot line. They are just guidance for us. They will be not shown in the runtime and in the preview of our callout. So it's just for design purpose to understand where are the elements. But we will see just in a second the preview of our callouts. We create our callout, and we can just move here with the start preview to see how the agent will see exactly our callout. So let me click this thing, and I see my callout. Now there is a small difference with the size because I'm just zooming my Chrome browser, but it's exactly the preview that the user will see. The preview in the position, the size, and the style. We will always look small difference between the design view and the preview view for several reasons. First of all, as I said, in the design view, we have guidelines with this dotted line that help us with the design. But the second thing, that is important thing that I started to discuss before, the dialogue that appear as the callout is under Internet Explorer engine. What we are seeing in the design time of the Automation Studio is differently is the Chrome engine. It means that if you are familiar with HTML and web design, you know that between browsers there is always a small difference. Automation Studio comes built in with the already normalized CSS that allow us to reduce the difference between the design time and the runtime view, but it's always a best practice to open the preview and check your design. Okay, now this is the simple part. Now just try to challenge ourselves a little bit more, and let's add some dynamic data. What I'm trying to say that I want that in my callout, once it's starting, the value inside this button change. It means it's not anymore what I put inside as the static data in the design time. We change after an event. We just, for simplicity, we start as event the moment that this callout appear. So how can we do this? I'm creating a new event handler just for a demo purpose. And this event handler, I can drop as when area the solution loaded. It means once my automation start. And now in the do part, this is the fun thing. If we are now coming back to our callout and I'm expanding my specific callout, we will see that together with the basic information that we have as default inside the callout, our function, events, and property of the callout, I see here the button that I dropped in. It means that Automation Studio bound automatically the callout, the component, in the moment that the user will drop it inside. We're coming back to our callout. Sorry. I drop this button, and this button now appears here directly in the asset panel. We call this data model because if I'm now expanding the button, the specific button, we see all the properties of this button that you can read and write dynamically. It means that now if I'm coming back to the event handler, first of all, let me show the callout. So let me drop the show function. It means that now I'm saying once the solution is loaded, once my automation is starting, I will show my callout. This is the first thing that we need to do. The second thing, we can drop the value of the button. Let's put before that my callout is shown. And we can put something that we want. We can put a static value like start new, or through the this button, call dynamic data, like a variable or the result of another function. Well, we will see this a little bit later. Now, the only thing that we need to do is run my project. So let me save and start the project. It's important to understand that now we are loading dynamic data. It means that my preview button that we saw before is not relevant anymore, because here the change of the text that you can see here, start new, happened only after a specific event. That is in this case, once the solution is loaded. But you can change this event in whatever you want. You can put something related to Outlook, or something related to the user activities, but it's probably something more that you already know regarding all the automation that you already did. So let me now close my project. Okay, and let me come back to my callout. Let me close this. It's not ready. Okay. Now let's try to do the play a little bit more with our callout, and let's start to bind in write and read way in two ways. So let me just drop two additional columns to create 3 rows inside my callout. And I will drop one input field. This is a regular HTML component input field, and one label that in Automation Studio could be dynamic. Now let me put my entire row here in the middle. Okay. Now our challenge is simple. I want that the value of the label will change once I'm clicking the start button with the value of this input field. How can we do this? Very, very simple, because once again, if I'm coming back to the callout 1, I now see all the components that are dropped inside the callout here as data model. And each component, each control has his own properties. So what we need to do, select the trigger, the element that triggered our automation. So I'm clicking the start button. Now I'm moving down where we have these 2 tabs and identify the control action. The control action is a builder dedicated to this button, and all the things that I'm dropping inside this automation in this function builder will be triggered once the button is on click. Each component in Automation Studio has his own trigger, has his own control action section. So coming back to our requirement, I'm clicking the button. That is what is triggering our automation. Going here to the control action, and now I need to drop the destination of our automation, that in this case is the value of the label, and just try to read what we have here. We want to assign a new value inside the callout 1, that is our asset, label 1, that is our label value. Now we can just simply add, as we did before for the button, a new value, just using my keyboard to insert my static value. But in this case, we want something more. We want something dynamic. So we want, as we said, we want to read the value inside the input text and put it here. So To do this, I need to click this folder, and I'm opening here something that we call asset model. The asset model is theoretically is the asset panel filtered by the type of property that we can insert in this specific position. It means that now we need to insert a text value, and the text value is coming from this input field. So I'm just looking for my callouts. Callout 1, there is this one that we are working with. We can identify the input one, this is this element that I'm just dropped in, and take the value. Double click, and I'm inserting, I'm saying that I'm assigning the value of the input to the label, and everything will happen only once my button is clicked. So let me save the project and run again the solution. As we said, each control has its own properties. The button has on click, the radio group has his own trigger, his own event like on change, and you can learn very simply to understand, you can learn very simply how to use your control depending on your cases. So let's come back to our example. I have my callout. Just want to show you again that we are talking about a window that is not related to the browser. I can appear everywhere inside my my machine, my computer. This is a key part of Automation Studio because of callout design, because we need to understand that we can pop up the callout wherever we want. And now we said that we can change the value. We can just write something inside this input. I can start the trigger, and the value will be reproduced here in the label. And it was very simple. We didn't need to bind. We didn't need to assign a business model. Nothing. Everything is coming out of the box already inside the data model of the Asset Panel of Automation Studio. Let's now, I want to put here a challenge. Now I don't want to use the start button to trigger my activity. I want that directly once the user is using his keyboard and writing something inside the input, the value of the input appear direct in the label, in the dynamic test. Let's think together how we can resolve this issue. Okay, I'm starting to say, first of all, let me just disable what I created for the start, so will not affect my next operation. Let's come back to our callout, and we said, let's start with the control that trigger my automation. In this case, we said that the element that will trigger automation is the input. As we see here, we have the input on key up. It means that every time that the user is using key up inside this input, I'm triggering the automation. I'm starting here the automation inside the builder. So in this case, once again, we are going to the callouts, callouts 1, identify my destination, that is the label 1 value. I'm dropping this value here. And now we just to say again that we want the callout 1 input value. We are doing the same thing that we did before, but now the trigger is not coming from the clicking the button, but it's coming from the key up. So let me save the project and start again. Now I'm just playing with the controls. For sure, everything that we are doing inside the controls, you can do everywhere inside the studio, inside the event handlers, inside the workflows. You can change the value after a step or in the condition solution, but just in this webinar, just being focused on what happened inside the callout. So as we said, now on key up on this field, the label should change. So let's change again. As you see, I'm writing something inside the input and appear directly in this label. And I don't need anymore the start button. Okay, now what we can do with start button? Let's challenge ourselves a little bit more. Now is not enough what we did. We want to expand the functionality of our callout. We want to use JavaScript to expand our callout. For example, I want to change the color of this button in runtime. It's something that I cannot do directly in design time because we provide, as you see, we provide a panel that say what is the start color, what is the color of the specific control, but we don't have any properties that can allow us to change the color in runtime. To do this, we just need to use JavaScript. And JavaScript, we need to understand we can use regular vanilla JavaScript, or we can also use jQuery. You need to understand that the Automation Studio is coming with out-of-the-box jQuery 11 inside. It means that I can just directly insert a jQuery function and it will work directly in our Automation Studio. Just for someone that is new regarding jQuery, you can find a lot of tutorial regarding jQuery everywhere in the web. There is a specific website dedicated to jQuery. It's very funny and simple JavaScript library you can use directly inside the Automation Studio. Let's now try it. So first of all, I need another event handler. The new event handler, in this new event handler, we insert a new function that is called Inject Javascript. But why we need the new event handler and we cannot do directly in this callout? Because the JavaScript will run only if the callout is already existing. We cannot, as in this case, we cannot insert the JavaScript if the callout is not appearing. So let's come back to our second event handler and let's specify as event when the callout is shown. It means only when the callout is already appearing inside the monitor of our agent, we can do something. And in this case, we can use this function that I really love, is the Inject Javascript. Okay? In this field, we can put our JavaScript. Now, we said that we want to change the color of this button. To change the color of this button, we have several ways. But first of all, we need to identify this button as a target. To identify in JavaScript, to identify an element as target, we have several ways. The most common way are through class or through ID. In Automation Studio, we can simply add a class here, for example, near. Okay. And now my component has already a class near that I can use for several reasons. And one of these reasons could be just to trigger a JavaScript function. Using class is always best practice if you have several elements with the same that need the same JavaScript, and I can use the same same class for this several element, and will be triggered once the JavaScript is running. So I'm coming here, and now here I have my second tip of the day. I'm just pressing Shift Enter, and my small field of Automation Studio will be converted as a full area that I can write everything that I want here in multi-line. That is very useful for long text or for code. So I'm just now taking a small JavaScript function that are already prepared. Just let me remove this, less relevant. We are saying in this function that we want that all the elements that have class near, we change his head background color to red. Once we trigger this JavaScript function, so we inject this JavaScript function only once the callout one is shown. And through the event handler one, we just show the callout. So let's start our project. Okay, as you see, we changed the color. Let me come back to the original one. We changed the color and the value of our callout just in runtime. So we can personalize this wherever we want. We can insert alert, validation, everything we want through JavaScript. As I say, we can run everything we want regarding JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, and jQuery, run loops, everything that we need, we can run inside our callout that is pure HTML, JavaScript, CSS, in Internet Explorer engine. And our automation is still running as expected. Another way that I can suggest you in the case that you don't want to use the class is to use the IDs. To identify the ID of this control, we have two ways. The first way is find this control here in the HTML panel. I can just identify my specific button and copy and paste my ID. Another trick that I received this not so long time ago is just to right click, inspect the code. I'm opening the inspector of Chrome and I'm just going through my code and I can identify, in this case, button IY2T is the ID of my button. I can just copy it. Coming back to my event handler and just replace the class with the ID. And the result will be exactly the same. Now I wanted to introduce you to another important, very important functionality that allow you to expand more and more the callout capabilities, again using JavaScript. But in this case, coming back to our asset panel, callout one have this other function that is called execute JavaScript function. This function will, as you understand, just execute an existing JavaScript function inside our code. So how to use it? First of all, we need to inject the function that we want to run with execute JavaScript. It means that first of all, I'm injecting again, and I'm taking now another function. Once again, Shift Enter to move to multi-line. I'm pasting my new function that is a very function in JavaScript that is say that the function name is run alert, and based on a input parameter will alert a message. So the first thing that we need to do once the callout one is shown is insert our function. Now I want to trigger this function. I want to execute this specific function JavaScript through clicking this button. So if we learn enough today, we know to trigger something, we select the button, going here down, identify the button on click, our trigger, our builder, and I can now just drag and drop the execute JavaScript. Execute JavaScript accepts two parameters. The first one is the name of the function, the JavaScript function that I just insert. Let me now just paste the name. This was run alert. A second parameter accepts a list. In a JavaScript function, we have a list of parameters separated by a comma. So we can insert here a list of parameters, and this parameter could be static. I can just write them, or could be dynamic. They could come from a variable for a result of a workflow, or from, in this case that I want to try, from the value of another control inside the callout. So let me click here. I create a temporary list. As first value of the list, I can just write whatever we want, but I want to do more. I want to take the value of this field. How can we do? Exactly as we did before. Just click in the folder, identify the callout. In this case, what we want, the value of the input. So we can just take the value of the input. And now it said that now once I'm clicking the start button, I will run this JavaScript function that I previously inject inside the callout, and as input parameter of this JavaScript function will be exactly the value of the input. So let's start again the project and let's test it. Put here with example just simple JavaScript, but I believe that everybody here will be a JavaScript developer better than me. But anyway, we said that our automation said that the start, the color, and the value of the button change on dynamically. The value of the, let me write something better. Okay, the value of this text will change based on the value of the input. And once I'm clicking this button, I'm running a specific function that is an alert, JavaScript alert, and inside the alert, we have the value of the input. Once again, this is theory. You can expand this to your application and do really whatever you want, because just the limit is just your knowledge in JavaScript. Now, before ending, there are a couple of more things that I want to show. Important thing during real scenario in of development. For example, I want to change the size of my callout dynamically. I don't want that my callout, I know that the content will be bigger, of content will be smaller in specific case. So just let me reduce here the size. Okay. I want that the content of my the size of my callout will be higher. For the specific reason, that could be because I know that I want to insert a dedicated message or something different. How can I change the size of my callout dynamically directly with Automation Studio? So once again, I'm moving to my event handler that trigger my callout to be shown. As we did until now, always the heart of Automation Studio, the asset panel, I need to identify my callout. And if I'm looking here to all the functions that are available, I can see the height value. I can just simply drag and drop the height properties, and I can change it with dynamic value, once again, coming from a variable, coming from the result on a function, or just writing something like 600 pixels. If I'm now rounding my callout, the size of my callout will appear higher. Just I don't know if you look, I'm just moving the assign before the show because it's so important. This is a parameter that should be assigned before the callout appear. Another thing that I can do, for example, if I'm working with agents, I want to show as title in the modal or on our callout the name of the agent of the client. So moving back to our event handler, I can just find the title value. As we did now, we just drag and drop the callout title. And also here, I can just change the value. In this case, I just insert by myself by my keyboard. And once again, coming back, I can use dynamic value, just pressing this folder and taking a dynamic value inside the Automation Studio. Let's run it. Save. Okay, as you see now, my callout is higher, and the title is personalized, but in runtime. Okay, now there is a last function that I want to talk about regarding Automation Studio, and then we talk about teamwork. And the last function that I think this could be very useful, especially as a result of any function or activity of the user, is the setBody. The setBody function could be applied both before that the callout exists or after that callout exists. Doesn't matter. So you can use everywhere inside your automation, and just simply replace the entire callout code with your own code. For example, now I'm just taking an external HTML code. Once again, Shift Enter to open the multi-line view. I'm just pasting several lines of HTML. They are all controlled that doesn't exist inside the Automation Studio, the H1, H2. And if I'm running now the project, I will see that all my content, the input, the button, everything will be replaced by the new HTML that I just created. And once again, you can play with this. Once the user press a button, we can inject a new code with an icon or wherever you want. Everything happen dynamically inside your automation. Now a couple of more tips and tricks. Once you are working in big solution, big project, I always recommend, first of all, not as I did, but give a specific name to your callout and your to event and asset. Another thing that I always recommend is to use this inside the common statement. We have the comment. The comment is, as you understand, just a line of text that doesn't affect at all your entire automation. And to use it to consume a comment, you can just use it every asset inside the asset panel, just drag and drop. It means that I can drop here a comment and also here a comment. You can add your comment. And so your colleague or yourself can identify better what you did and everywhere, every time that you are coming, and debug better your callout or anyway, your entire automation. And because I talk about working in team, I want also to say and to show you a nice feature that we have in Automation Studio that is related to this. We believe that our automation are becoming more and more big solutions with a big effort. So we believe also in team activities. And we believe also that I can be a callout expert and Neil could be a workflow expert, and we can merge our project together, work separately, and then merge our project together. Or if we talk about callouts, I can create several callouts as template, and all my team can consume my callouts templates wherever they want, and after that can change and improve and personalize this callout. How can we do this? First of all, I save in the project. We have a nice feature that is here located in the top bar, in the toolbar, that is called merge project. Inside this icon, it's the import and merge button, we have the merge project. With the merge project, I'm simply taking another project and I'm putting it inside the studio. So let me try to merge one project. I already created another project, it's called Merge Me. I can just double click on it, and now my external callout that let me say a callout that Nir make or a template that I want to reuse appear here in the list of my callouts with all the function. I can open it. They can also change whatever we want. It's not read-only. It's a totally new callout with the same design that I imported or from the original one, but I can do whatever we want. And related to this, we open for Automation Studio a new session. If I'm coming back here in my hamburger, I have a button that is called Resource Center, or if I want, just closing my project, and I'm going here, Resource Center, I can click here, and I can, in the Resource Center, we have packages that allow us to use function, etc. Or we have templates. It means that we create professional templates that you can just download and merge inside your project and do with them whatever you want. You can personalize them, change the size, change the color, change the text, add features, but you always have something already generated to start to work with. And Nir knows that this section is always updated, and we always say have new element in all the resource center part. So coming back to the presentation. So first of all, thank you to participate to this webinar. Thank you for Nir also to invite me. And it's not finished here. We have other things to talk about, a lot of things to talk about in the callout world. And oh, sorry. So we present what we do. We will do the next session. We will talk about improve your callout design. As you see, we didn't talk about it at all regarding how to make the callout better in a design way. So the next session will be dedicated to this. We can improve the design, we can improve the user experience, and increase customer engagement, satisfaction, and loyalty, and to make really your callout more professional and more professional. So please, Nir, you want to add something?
Yes. I wanted to add in our last minute. I just want to talk about the Resource Center challenge that we have launched 2 months ago and is still up and running until the end of the month. The idea is actually a call for all of you to contribute packages or templates that you have created and you think that can be used by the entire Automation Studio users community. There is also a very nice price, so everyone who submit a package get a $50 Amazon gift card, and you submit up to 2, so you can even get 100. And for the top 3 that will contribute the best packages, we will also give a $500 Amazon gift card. So guys, I think this is a great opportunity for you to do some money for your next gadget. You are all welcome. The details are in the RPA community. And and you are all invited. And I guess we are 3 minutes before time. So if there are no, I didn't receive any questions via the chat, but of course, we can get your questions even via community or a direct channel. So thank you very much, Simone. And thank you all
Thank you
for joining.
Thank you, Nir. Thank you, everybody. So see you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Simone.
Yes.
Thank you.